Hi, I'm Kristen Zook, and this is kind of my reflection and discussion on current barriers to Web 2.0. First of all, summarizing the articles, I found a lot of it really interesting. A lot of it I felt really kind of supported what I thought was happening in some places. And I think that everyone agrees that technology has really impacted our world in many positive ways. There's so many exciting things going on, and people can have access to so many different things, makes kind of the global economy, global everything more within reach. And that a lot of people feel that education seems to kind of lag behind. And there were many reasons that were reported for this. And specifically from teachers, they really felt like it was more about time. There was just a lack of time to learn the material, learn how to use the technology, learn how to integrate it appropriately. And also that they just didn't really have the support, whether it was from admin or from just an infrastructure perspective. They didn't really have the support, and they're not trained. Um, I'm not trained in the actual workings of the technology. And so that would be a big problem. And even if you had the resources, being able to actually use it appropriately. And even within the schools that do have those resources, there really seems to be a divide within the school. Some of it's due to what's available to these students outside of school, but some of it also is just a lack of education from the students on how to effectively use the tools for educational purposes. Maybe they know how to use it for entertainment purposes. They know how to use the social aspect of it, but they don't really know how to use these tools in school for learning. And also, maybe teachers are not integrating them well into their lessons. And so even though they're there, not every student is learning the same way or with the equal access, I guess. And then the issue that I found startling, although I realized that not everyone has in society has equal access to all of the same resources, I did not realize what a big issue this is in specific places where people, just citizens in society, cannot get access to the internet and to some of these resources that we take for granted. And even if they can get them, it's very unequal. People that either don't have access to Wi-Fi, the internet at all, or are still relying on dial-up. And just what can we do about that problem? That who needs to go in and help fix this, and those kinds of things. So that was something that I really wasn't expecting and didn't really realize. And this is the digital divide, that I think that there are certain things that can be helped. I feel like overall, schools have taken an increasingly larger role in students' lives, looking at the child as a whole, trying to communicate a little bit more with parents, and really make it more of a larger community effort in helping our students and families have access to things and really providing them for, what they need for the future. And so I think that when planning for technology, for advancements, we need to keep in mind that they don't all have access outside of school. And so what resources can we provide? What would be most beneficial? Making sure that when we're creating lessons and trainings that we keep in mind that once they leave the building, they won't all have access to that. And so are we making it so some students can perform better or can learn more because they do? And so we need to really keep that in mind. This is something that was brought up when our district went with one-to-one several years ago. All of our elementary students have iPads, and all of our middle and high schools have MacBooks. And it did come up if that was appropriate to do based on the fact that some students would not have access once they leave school. And it was kind of decided that it was very important that we get the students these technologies, that they start learning the skills that they need, and that we can do everything that we can while they're at school so that they're learning something about all of this rather than having zero access to it. And then some schools try to do some things like they do provide students with more of that technology literacy while they're at school, digital citizenship. And then some of the high schools, particular, most of them offer kind of evening hours in the school libraries a couple days a week, so that students who maybe don't have access to Wi-Fi at home can come back to school and spend a couple hours if they want, working on projects, working on homework. There are teachers there that they can work with, but kind of just trying to provide them more access if they need it and more support. Skills that I think are really important for the 21st century student. They're a little bit different. It's not just a one size fits all kind of program for school now. I think they need to be working more on collaborating, not just group work, but really the thinking process and the designing things together, thinking through things together. Communication, knowing how to communicate in a variety of ways and knowing how to do it well, what that looks like. Technology literacy, critical thinking skills, creativity. I think flexibility is a big one because things are changing so rapidly that just because I learned something one way doesn't mean that very quickly in the future I'm going to need to be able to do it a different way or learn something new. And so making sure students know how to learn and that things are changing. And problem solving. I think the world's filled with just things that need solved. And being able to know how to do that that ties up all of these other pieces, being able to problem solve. My personal internet use, I think that being more connected to just everybody, family, friends, but also globally, knowing what's going on around the world, being able to take different perspectives on things. So we're not just living in a bubble with just the things that are directly around us and impacting us, that we really, and me personally, I look things up constantly. I want to know what's going on. There's knowledge and information available at all times. So if I don't know how to do something, I can look up how to do it. If I want to know what's going on somewhere, I do that. I think the biggest thing that I've used this for is my personal learning network and professional. I think I learn new things constantly. I learn what other people are doing, how I can do what I do better, getting ideas that I would have never thought of before. Specifically, I use Twitter a great deal, just for communicating, also for getting ideas. And then we are a Google Apps for Education school district. And so we use that for everything. That's how we build our professional learning. That's how we communicate. That's how we share resources. And so I've used that a great deal. And then I put consumerism on here because honestly, I buy a lot of my stuff online now that I normally wouldn't have gone to the store for. With having 4 kids, really it makes it a lot easier. And I have taken advantage of that kind of a lot. As far as what trainings I feel like I still need, we have a couple things in our district specifically that I really could use some more training on. We have a brand new assessment platform, and I will be responsible for helping to train principals and teachers on this, and also to kind of collect district data on some of our common assessments that we're going to be using. And so learning just what it can do, what's the purpose, what pieces of it are going to be most valuable and are going to help support our teachers and our students the most. And I know very little about that. We haven't had something like that before, and I'm definitely going to need some more training on that and kind of blending that in. And then I put on here the math digital resource. We have a brand new resource. We are not going to be getting just a bunch of textbooks that will be passed out to our students. We will have a few, obviously, for specific students, but there's a lot more interactive features on it, manipulatives for students. And again, I'll be helping to train teachers. We've had one training. That picture is of just a couple days ago. We did a training. But knowing what that looks like, because we're going to be moving more and more towards digital resources for our students and our teachers. And that's a shift for us. And so I really could use some more training on what that looks like, what the best practices are, those kinds of things. I feel that our district is really working to move towards incorporating that 21st century technology for our students. And we have been a one-to-one district for several years. Our resource adoptions are really moving more towards things that are beneficial to students now. giving them access to more of those hands-on things. We are also looking at a lot more of those open educational resources in our curriculum. So as we're building, we're looking for just what's the best thing out there that we have access to and that our students can learn the best from. We have a lot of signature programs, pathways, the career and tech ed focus. We're working every year on building more and more of those, and then also taking those kinds of learnings and building them into all of our classrooms. And here are just a few of the things that we offer in our district that students can take advantage of that really help push them towards those focus areas. As some advantages of having those innovative practices going on, students really can use and apply a lot more of those skills that we know that they need. Critical thinking, everything's very hands-on. We're trying to move towards that way. They can do a lot more collaboration. One of my personal favorites is just their ability to create things now. That students have the way of showing teachers how they can do things, what they have learned, and they can do it in a way that fits them best by creating various things. It can be a little more individualized. I feel like students are a lot more motivated when these are the kinds of practices that are being used in schools. They learn from experiences. They get to do a lot more problem solving. There's a lot more real world application. As you can see in the pictures that I've chosen, these are a variety of things that we offer in our district. And they try to create the most real world application that they can for these students with the kinds of equipment and the technology that they will be exposed to. And they'll be hopefully a lot more prepared for the world after they graduate. A few disadvantages. I really feel like there are much less of a disadvantage kind of that you would find rather than the advantages. I feel like there are a lot fewer of them. I think one of them is just having the time for professional development, because I think that the more confident teachers are, the better that they will do in their classrooms. I also think that access is a disadvantage, much more than I realized. And so figuring out some of those pieces, at least on an educational side, at least for the schools, what can they do to support students who don't have a lot of access? Support for teachers in the classroom. Just, do we have a good infrastructure? What happens when the technology does not work? Are they supported in trying new things? So all the support just all the way around. And then measurement. I think sometimes people want to know that it's working and they want to know right now. And I think it takes a little time to figure out these shifts in our educational practices, just taking time to be able to properly measure how well it's working for our students, and making sure that people have access to the resources that they need to implement these kinds of things. Some problems that might be found. Personally, I found that some of the students really struggled with misusing their devices, especially when we first shifted to that they had access now to games, to watching Netflix on TV. They had instant messenger, so they would message each other all the time. And some of that I found was just myself and teachers getting used to how to manage that better. So if we're on the devices, making sure lessons are very engaging, making sure they're accountable to each other for the learning that's going on, those kinds of things. So while there was some of that, it was definitely not enough that would ever make me stop using the technology. As far as bullying specifically, I know of a few instances where this has happened. Mostly was through, those social media like Twitter or Instagram. It was obviously dealt with. And while I think that digital citizenship and really focusing on those kinds of things is so important to helping with that, and I think that it does make people who maybe would do this anyway, this is an easier way for them to have access to the bullying. I hope that people learn how to handle this better. Students, maybe once they get more used to having these available to them, that those will be fewer even than they are now. And while it's devastating, I don't think that these are reasons to not use the technology. I think that just comes with more training and more kind of management. So I feel overall that there's so many positive things going on, and